The expansion? Yeah. It's going to be about another $300 billion.
So you know what they're doing? They're building a big plant in the U.S.
Just another day of bad decisions. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Dominic LeBlanc coming out and saying energy corridors, but electricity, not pipelines. We got some NDP infighting, new polling data. We got Donald Trump and the Qataris making a deal to essentially drop a nuclear bomb on Canada's aluminum industry. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we've got some research here from Abacus data. I'll bounce back and forth between this data throughout the video, but we've got this one. It says a majority of Canadians support federal investment in Canadian universities and research hospitals. And that's what we're seeing here. 78% of Canadians do, 11% oppose. This one here shows global talent seen as essential to Canada's economic growth. 57% of Canadians saying yes, 27% saying no. What we're seeing here is a list of priorities Canadians think are the highest, with this one 69% of frontline healthcare workers, skilled trade being 46%, agricultural 42%. It goes down here, technology researchers and entrepreneurs and business people. Highly agree. I think that the skilled trade people should be probably tied with this frontline healthcare workers. This really needs to be up right at the top as well. Next up, we got this one from the Globe and Mail. It says NDP caucus members dispute appointment of interim leader Don Davies. I guess they all weren't informed of him becoming the leader. They didn't talk about this. It says here 3 of the 7 members of the federal NDP caucus say they were not properly consulted about the appointment of the party's interim leader. This is bizarre. There's not many of them. They could literally sit around a table and just raise their hand, choose someone for the leader, and they clearly didn't do this. The 3 members who were not a part of this decision says here Leah Gazan, MP Lori Ildelot, and Vancouver East MP Jenny Kwan. Little infighting for the NDP. NDP National Director went on to say that the process was followed to the letter. Her caucus brings a variety of experiences. Yeah, they're having some internal battles here. Next up, we got this one coming from Nanos Research. It says 4 out of 5 Canadians agree to some extent that Canada's old relationship with the United States is over. Considering Donald Trump interfered in our election and now it's a complete gong show, it's true, the relationship is affected. That old relationship is done. It's not going to be the same ever since. Next up, we got an update here on that free $400 million jumbo jet that was given to Donald Trump by Qatar. It turns out, according to this Forbes article, that they were trying to get rid of this plane because it's too much money in maintenance and they couldn't sell it to anyone.
The $400 million private jet that the government of Qatar gifted to Donald Trump, it was initially designed back in 2012 for the former Qatari prime minister. But it sounds like the expensive jet was just more trouble than it's worth. According to a new report in Forbes, quote, while many have speculated the Qataris have offered Trump the luxurious plane to curry favor with the famously transactional president, there may be a simpler rationale. They just don't want it anymore. The Royals have failed to sell the plane, which was put on the market in 2020. Giving it away could save Qatar's rulers a big chunk of change on maintenance and storage costs. Making Trump happy would be an added bonus. See, it turns out no one wanted to buy Qatar's hand-me-downs, with Forbes noting the massive, highly customized planes with idiosyncratic interior decorating are not easy to sell. One aerodynamics expert telling the outlet, quote, the market is incredibly illiquid for a jet like this. In fact, the planes are so difficult to get rid of that one aviation blog actually called it way back in 2020. All right, when the Qataris first put this jet up for sale, quote, I can't imagine Qatar will find a buyer for this plane, so one has to wonder who this 747-8 will be gifted to. Looks like Qatar finally found a sucker to pawn it off to.
Well, that's quite a turn of events for this story. How does someone get hustled if they got it for free? I mean, worst case scenario, they could take out the interior, turn it into a normal commercial jet. It's not exactly like this big burden. That was a brand new plane straight from the Boeing factory. A used Qatari plane is definitely a security risk. It could contain all sorts of surveillance. Yeah, that's the real issue there. Now, whether the Democrats want to laugh at Trump or not about the plane situation, there's no laughing about this. Emirati businessman has just announced he's going to be investing $4 billion in aluminum manufacturing in Oklahoma.
From AGA, Emirates Global Aluminum. Yes, pleasure. Very good. You do a good job with the aluminum.
This is a very special project.
Here's a big, very special project. Please, go ahead.
Yeah. So, sir, this is UAE technology. Smelters. It's been developed over 35 years. We're exporting to the world. And the first big project in our group is the U.S., state of Oklahoma. We're going to invest $4 billion. We're going to
investing $4 billion in Oklahoma, Doug. So if you want to move after you finish with the camera stuff, you can get a part-time job. I don't think you're going to be giving up the camera, right? Go ahead.
So today, the U.S. produces about 700,000 tons. We're almost doubling that capacity.
That's great.
In
Wow.
2030.
Wow, so he just said there, U.S. produces 700 tons. They're going to almost be doubling that with this aluminum smelter here. It says the first since 1980.
So what percentage will that be of the market in the U.S.?
Today, we're importing 4.2
That's good.
million tons. This is going to be about 40% now with that capacity.
That's fantastic.
And what we're doing, Mr. President,
Increased capacity by 40%.
is we're actually moving also 150,000 by the end of this year into recycled aluminum. So we're not just waiting for the smelter that we build in 2030, we're actually building capacity.
So how much will you be spending in the U.S. to make your plants bigger and add the new plant?
Another plant. After we complete 75%, we can look at another investment. But we'll probably
Right, no,
another for
the expansion.
The expansion.
Yeah.
It's going to be about another $300 billion because this is recycled. It's a company in Minnesota we bought last year.
Oh.
Mr. President, yes.
See, they're doing all of this work in the U.S. with the aluminum. They do a lot of aluminum here, but if they do it here, they have to pay a big tariff to send it in.
Exactly.
So you know what they're doing? They're building a big plant in the U.S. There's no tariff.
We're exporting 700,000
Yeah.
tons. Now we're going to make it in the U.S.
No, that's
where
we're
we're
going to make it in the U.S. now. So it's amazing. That's
The great thing.
Wow, that's not good for Canada's aluminum industry. Not at all. Not only is that going to be directly competing with it, Americans will just prioritize that, especially if Mark Carney can't get rid of that aluminum tariff. We got Clyde resharing this one here. I'm starting to think Canada isn't a real country. It's a cargo cult. Must turn into the orange man. Hurry and sign more fake executive orders. Carney is doing his absolute best to mimic Donald Trump. Elbows up. We got some new data here coming from Abacus Data. This one here says most Canadians are confident the next generation will find good jobs, but a large share still have doubts. So we're seeing here somewhat confident. People find jobs very confident, not very confident. So it's kind of split here. 55 to 45%. Things are going to get worse here. Got this one. Most Canadians expect major economic shifts to affect their family's financial stability within 5 years. 78 to 22%. Yeah, no kidding. This one here, most likely to agree without investing in modern industries and skills, Canada risks falling behind economically. 82% to 9%. So 43% of Canadians voted for Mark Carney, thinking he would help Canada when really he pulled back the tariffs. He's negotiating with Donald Trump. Actually, he's off in Rome right now. Just think of this. We're going through the biggest economic crisis in Canada's history. He even said it. He ran his entire campaign on it, and he's off to Rome, getting the jet ready and just going off for a little vacation. Well, technically it's for the new Pope, but really, is this appropriate right now? So here's his plane tracker heading over to Portugal. He'll attend the Papal inaugural mass on Sunday. Thanks, Carney. Thanks for nothing. Thanks for elbows up, standing up for Canadians. And we've got this one here from Brian Matthews says, the most useful idiot Trudeau Carney used this past election. Doug Ford. He bought it hook, line, and sinker. So Table Salt posting here that Carney's order he submitted mid-election nullified most counter tariffs in the U.S. So there's a lot of talk of this now. Here's the actual order that got rid of the elbows up counter tariffs, except for the ones on food that are going to wreak havoc in the grocery stores here soon. As grocers run out of supply, they're going to have to rebuy it at the much higher prices. The tariffs essentially that are put on Canada for Canadians to pay.
The Canadian government has rightly retaliated and is rightly retaliating with our own tariffs that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here in Canada.
He said this in the middle of the election. He said this right around the time or after he took off the tariffs.
My government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect.
Canada strong or Canada dumb? That should be the new tagline, guys. All these liberals, get your Canada dumb shirt. The key question is now, with posts like this from the food professor, the city of Regina has approved a $6.78 million incentive to attract Costco, an American company, to build a second store in the city. With all the buy Canadian noise right now, is this really a good idea? People saying yes. I say yes, I love Costco. Costco offers the best value, hands down. Good products, good price. Expensive now, but still better than most other stores. I wonder what the elbows up crew will do. Is it only elbows up when it's convenient? But if it's Costco, they're like, oh, forget about that. We'll put our elbows back down. Costco will offer lower prices to residents. It's a good idea. Exactly. The liberals got played. They look foolish, absolutely foolish. My local Walmart employs all local folks, uses local services, utilities, pays taxes to Canadian government, and it provides products and services to locals at affordable prices. Just saying. And as Ann Roll says, why was Trump silent when he knew the tariffs passports were revoked. They are working on this together. I've been saying it the entire time. They are playing everyone. These guys know each other. They got the dirty deal in the background. Something is going on here between the two of them. Probably has something to do with this. That wasn't their first time meeting. I'm convinced of it. When they met at the White House, that wasn't their first meeting. To the point where even CBC is puzzled that Mark Carney isn't tabling a budget. Listen to this. This is the woke CBC, David Cochran.
Well, not necessarily the explanations that were given on camera. You can understand why they might want a bit more time than 2 weeks from now to have to table a budget, because that's what you'd have to be ready for. But to not even give an update on the deficit projections and the economic projections, Fred, like that I don't get. Like, you may not have your whole plan ready to go with the dollar amounts and you want to talk to industry and these things, but like, we have no idea what the financial track of the government is right now, and they're going to ask people to vote on a $5 to $6 billion tax cut without knowing where that fits into the bottom line.
And it goes against the entire narrative of Carney that he is the man with a plan. That's why he told Canadians, and it's why he won this last election. They believed he had a plan. And in fact, he used it as an attack point. A plan beats no plan.
That's it. I'm glad he said it. A plan beats no plan. He said that so many times, and here's the guy with no plan.
He has no plan now. He doesn't have a fiscal plan. Now he was elected leader of the party in March. He could have given direction even before the election on what he wants his budget to look like. He had a costed platform. Why is there no budget? I find it absolutely mind-boggling that they're doing this, that not giving anything, any kind of a statement.
But what about if it was like, because I'm trying to wrap my head around this too, right?
Maybe he'll find a plan in Rome. Maybe that's where he left his plan.
When you guys won government in 2006 with Harper, he was sworn in early February, budget came in May. So if you give like a financial update now and a budget in September, you know what I mean? But it doesn't even seem like there's going to be a budget at all. It's going to be an economic state. A Fez, your favorite thing.
Right. So look, the Liberals have always been trying to figure out how to budgets balance themselves. Just don't have a budget balance. Look at that. Right. No, it's absurd. And even going to
look at them. They don't like that. They know it's true, though. This little Liberal guy looking down, he knows Justin Trudeau said that, and he knows that this has turned out disastrous. And now their guy, Mark Carney, their horse in this race, is awful for Canada. They both know it. September,
I think, is not acceptable. You look at the 2006 when Harper came in, that was a wholly transformed government.
I get it.
And they had a number of months to do it, and they did it. Carney became leader of the party in March. He was prime minister in March. He could have started giving direction, and he just had a fully costed platform. Former, again, central banker, Mr. Finance guy, worked at the Department of Finance, knows the ins and outs of that department. He was one of the guys that helped us do our budget in 2008 when we did it. So it just makes no sense to me. In 2011, we had an election, and a few weeks later, we brought in the budget. Now, it's the same government, same prime minister, but it makes no sense, and it goes against the entire narrative that he's set up.
I believe that example there was 3 weeks after they got in, had a budget. It would be reasonable for Mark Carney to come back in, say, September 1st and have a budget then. That's like 4 months or so, similar to Stephen Harper. But to just skip the entire year and then go to the next year, we're going on like a year and a half, no budget, 2 years.
That he was the man with the plan.
Greg, what do you think? I mean, are people making too much out of this, or is this really surprising and difficult?
Probably going to tick off a lot of Liberals here, but I don't disagree. I did not necessarily expect a budget. I did expect an economic update of some sort. Yeah. And I also think, because it's an opportunity, you have some transformative things that you want to do. You could drive them through the lens of your spring economic statement, however you want to spin it. Also, the lack of communications. Like you could have talked about, we want to get our middle class tax cut passed. We want that done, and then we need to know for this reason. There were lots of ways to communicate around this, but there's really been nothing. I mean, I was glad that the minister came and talked to you about it, but I think at that point there was hours and hours of people wondering, why is Mark Carney's government choosing to go in this direction?
It's like they didn't think I personally would be surprised. You know what I mean? It's like they didn't anticipate it, or maybe they just don't think it's important.
This panel's unbelievable. They don't know what to think of this. They're like, maybe we got duped. maybe Carney's actually terrible for Canada. Now, obviously, that's not what they said, but they're questioning why he's not tabling a budget. Seems very suspicious. We've got multiple ridings getting recounted, and they're all flipping Liberal. Very convenient. Are we at 172 yet? Not quite. At this point, if they get to 172, there's going to be some funky monkey happening. The Terrebonne riding has to go to a recount. There's no doubt. With not only the one vote that tied it, but there's 5 more votes. The Nunavut one, still waiting on that. The Milton East is now in favor of the Liberals. That still puts it at 170. They already added that one in. So the budget would just show how bad things are. It's bad. You know, a couple days ago, Stephen Guilbeault said, no pipelines. Why don't we just maximize our pipeline that's 40% being used, the Trans Mountain one, when really it's at 80% capacity? Well, today we've got Dominic LeBlanc here on this French TV station saying that Carney wants to do energy corridors, which doesn't mean pipelines.
Dans mes conversations avec les premiers ministres, et M. Carney dans la campagne électorale a été très clair, un corridor
An energy corridor can bring in electricity.
Énergétique, ça peut amener des lignes de transmission d'électricité, ça peut amener le gaz
Transmission lines in natural gas.
naturel, ça peut amener à la limite des wagons.
It can even bring in rail cars with critical minerals. This guy's starting to sound like Jagmeet Singh doing the east-west electricity grid.
De minéraux critiques, c'est pas uniquement des pipelines. Les gens ont
Not just pipelines, people tend to reduce it to
tendance à réduire ça à une pipeline de pétrole.
Ouais.
an oil pipeline. We're not talking about oil pipelines.
On parle pas de pipeline de pétrole quand on parle de corridor énergétique.
When we talk about energy corridors, yeah, they're not building a new pipeline. Like, let's get real. This is not happening. No pipelines, no power, just weakness wrapped in woke. Oil stay in the ground. That's right. There's no prosperity in Canada because the people voted for no prosperity. With Dominic LeBlanc saying energy corridors, but not pipelines. It's interesting because we've got Danielle Smith here talking about data, actual data showing that the people of Quebec want a pipeline. She's talking to Legault, Premier Legault, about this of Quebec.
You thinking about that? Well, I think it's fantastic. I think what we've begun to see, especially since the big event in November in the United States, that Canadians have had to do a lot of soul searching about what it means to be Canadian. And what I've seen at the First Minister's table is that every single premier has priority projects that they want to get built. And they've had to make some compromises on things perhaps in the past. I've pointed out to them that the reason Alberta sells so much to the United States is we've had a hard time selling to our neighbors, both west and east as well as north. And what can we do about that? So I started that conversation with Premier Legault. He did say that he would have to ensure that there was social acceptability. We've done some polling and we shared that with him to demonstrate that the loud voices might be in opposition, but the quiet consensus is that, yeah, we do need to work on these nation building projects. I'm sensitive to the fact that perhaps we have to have a broader discussion about the route. Perhaps going through Montreal is a little bit more problematic than going further north, but I think that that is a real demonstration of how premiers and provinces want to work together.
I don't see it happening. It should happen. Seems Carney and the Liberals have no desire to put through a pipeline. But why would he? Why would Mark Carney want to hurt his investments in Brookfield? A new pipeline would just be more competition. Next up, we got an update here from Garnet Genuous and Conservative. Both the Liberals wanted to take away charitable status. As it says here, it's been temporarily delayed because of no budget being presented.
Earlier this year, we blew the whistle on the Liberal attack on charitable status. A report from the NDP Liberal-dominated Finance Committee recommended stripping charitable status from houses of worship and further politicizing charitable status determinations. And you signed petitions, wrote letters. We fought back against that. Now, we were expecting in the budget the government to either move forward with those changes or decide not to move forward with those changes. However, they've chosen a third option, present no budget at all this spring. So we're not going to see what the government's plans are with regard to charitable status in terms of following these recommendations or not until a little bit later. So no budget at all this spring, very irresponsible, but we continue to be in the dark about what the government is going to do, whether they're going to implement these extreme attacks on charitable status proposed by the Finance Committee or not. There will be a fiscal update this fall, likely, and a budget next spring. So we're going to continue this fight to protect charitable status from these attacks from the Liberals.
Just another day where Donald Trump makes another deal. Mark Carney doesn't make a deal. How many days will it take before Mark Carney finally starts to decide to fight for Canada?